You ever have one of those moments when your life collides with someone else's in the least likely place imaginable, like, say, 35,000 feet above the Atlantic, inside a pressurized metal tube hurtling through the night, and you walk out the other side a completely different person? Yeah, that happened to me. And honestly, it all started because I couldn't stop staring at a woman in first class who looked like she was about to die, and nobody else seemed to notice, or maybe they just didn't know what to do. You know what I mean? I was 17. My name's Elijah Williams. That night, 3 rows ahead, Catherine Harrington was gasping for air, lips turning blue, and her millionaire husband, this silver-haired guy in a suit that probably cost more than my grandma's rent, was shouting at the flight crew. "Somebody help her. Is there a doctor on board?" There wasn't, not that I heard. The attendants looked panicked, fumbling through the emergency kit, while Richard Harrington gripped his wife's hand so tight, I thought he might break it. I sat there in coach, shrinking into my faded hoodie, wishing someone else would stand up. But when they finally came running through economy, scanning faces for a doctor, their eyes slipped right past me. Who'd expect a skinny black kid in ripped jeans to save the day? Not them. But see, I'd seen this before. My grandma's heart, her lungs, all those late nights learning about blood clots and what happens when your body just can't get enough air. And Catherine, well, she was pregnant, which made it a whole different kind of urgent. I hesitated, I'll admit. What if I was wrong? What if they laughed me off the plane? But her gasps, those frantic, sharp breaths, sounded just like my grandma when we rushed her to the ER last spring. That's when I stood up. "It might be a pulmonary embolism," I said, voice shaking but loud enough to stop the flight attendant in her tracks. "Pregnancy raises the risk, and if you have aspirin, you should give her one. Oxygen, elevate her legs. Please, let me help." They hesitated. The businessman sized me up like I was a stray dog sniffing around his car. But Catherine couldn't breathe, and desperation can make you trust the unlikeliest people. That's how I ended up kneeling next to her in first class, everyone staring like I was some kind of fraud or miracle worker. I talked her through each breath, checked her leg for swelling, explained what I thought was happening while Richard fired questions, barely holding it together. But when Catherine said, "My left leg's been swollen since yesterday," I knew I was right. We kept her calm, gave her aspirin, and pumped oxygen. The pilot rerouted for an emergency landing in Iceland. For the next hour, I watched over her like I'd watched over Grandma. Kept her talking, breathing, as the baby's heartbeat fluttered wildly on the portable monitor. When we landed, medics rushed her away. A doctor later told us the aspirin probably saved her and the baby. The millionaire tried to thank me, but I cut him off. "Don't thank me yet. She still needs real care." Turns out, I missed the biggest opportunity of my life, an interview for the Young Medical Achievers program in London, the one that could have changed everything for me and Grandma. I called her from the hospital waiting room. I didn't tell her about the lost scholarship, just that I'd helped someone, and she was proud. "You did right, baby. Knowledge is a gift you share." Richard sat down next to me, awkward and out of place under the hospital's fluorescent lights. He wanted to pay me back, scholarship money, connections, whatever it took. But when he finally asked what I wanted, I surprised him. "My grandmother needs care. Not just her, but people in our neighborhood, Harlem, who don't get a fair shot at doctors or medicine. If you really want to help them." He didn't expect that. He expected me to ask for cash, maybe a backdoor into the program I'd missed. Instead, I talked about the community clinic where people waited hours for help, about families who had to pick between groceries and insulin. For the first time, Richard listened, really listened. Maybe because his wife and kid were alive, because a Harlem kid knew what to do when nobody else did. The next morning, he found me in the hotel cafe. I thought he'd try to buy me off again, but he surprised me. He offered to invest in me, get me through med school, whatever it took. And when I hesitated, he leaned in and said, "This isn't charity. This is because you earned it." I thanked him, but said, "It's not about me, Mr. Harrington. If you want to make a difference, start something real. Fund a clinic that actually helps people like my grandma." You should have seen his face. It's like nobody had ever told him money wasn't the answer. He got this look, half shocked, half relieved, like someone had finally handed him a clue. Later, in the hospital, Catherine and Richard asked if I'd partner with them, help design a health initiative for Harlem, make sure it wasn't just a feel-good PR thing, but something that actually worked. Full scholarship, full care for Grandma, paid role for me. Catherine said, We want your vision, not just your story. It was overwhelming. Part of me wondered if it was real. But Grandma always said, God puts people in your path for a reason. So I agreed, on one condition: local leaders would be involved from day one, and it wouldn't be something they just abandoned when the next big story came along. They agreed, and soon enough, we started planning. A few weeks later, the Harringtons came to Harlem to meet Grandma. That's when things really shifted. My grandma's the kind of woman who can see through any pretense. She grilled Richard, made him promise to stick around, to really listen. She even joked, most rich folks talk about charity. I want action, not promises. Richard promised, and for the first time, I believed him. Over dinner, with cornbread and sweet potato pie on the table, we mapped out the beginnings of the Harlem Community Health Initiative: transportation for the elderly, better pharmacy access, specialists who would actually treat Medicaid patients, and a commitment that if Richard ever forgot why he was doing it, Grandma would be there to remind him. We walked the neighborhood, talked about the real gaps, and I saw Richard's eyes open wider with every block. He started to understand. It wasn't about throwing money at a problem. It was about seeing people, their dignity, and their worth. Months later, the clinic opened. My name was on the advisory board. Grandma got the care she needed, her own specialist, new equipment, a real shot at more good years. Catherine had her baby, a little girl they named Beatrice Elizabeth Harrington, after my grandma and Richard's mother. I became her godfather. Yeah, let that sink in for a second. A Harlem kid, the godfather to a millionaire's daughter, because I spoke up on a plane. Richard changed, too. He stopped thinking of charity as a tax write-off and started thinking of it as a duty. We all did. That day in the hospital, he told me, "You made me see things I didn't want to see." I told him, ignorance can be fixed, but only if you want to learn. He learned. I guess that's the thing about real change. It doesn't happen because you throw money at a problem or put your name on a building. It happens when you see people for who they are, not who you expect them to be. When you realize your fate might be tangled up with someone else's in ways you never imagined. On an airplane, in a hospital, over sweet potato pie in a Harlem kitchen. What I asked for wasn't money or connections. It was a chance for dignity, for someone else to be seen, to matter. So what do you think? Is justice about getting what you deserve, or is it about making sure everyone gets a fair shot, no matter where they start? Let me know. I'm still figuring it out myself. And if you ever find yourself in a situation where you could change someone's life, don't hesitate. Stand up. Speak out. You never know who's watching, or what kind of world you might help create next.